Welcome to the Pineapple Perspective. I'm Troy Hooper, your host, and this is always sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants. PepperLunchRestaurants.com. If you're a multi-unit franchisee looking for the next great opportunity to work with a brand with simplified operations and tremendous returns potential, PepperLunchRestaurants.com/franchise. All right, today, as usual, I bring interesting people. I hope you think if this is the first time you're listening to this, I'm going to get a lot of credit. If you've heard a lot of our shows, you're going to shake your head and agree at the end of this. This is an interesting conversation because this is a very interesting man. Richard Liverman is an extraordinary human being. He's a part of the Rising Tides community. He joins our roundtables online twice a week, every week for an hour under the great leadership of Sean Walchef and the crew. I have a great privilege of being a part of that. He's been with us for a long time in that group. And Richard has a lot to say about a lot of stuff, and he's quite a funny guy usually. So, Richard, welcome to the show.
Yeah, no pressure there. Thank you.
Yeah. Set the stage. You better be funny and interesting.
Well, lower the bar. Lower the bar. Let's lower the bar.
And, I did fail to say, but let's get it out of the way. You're from, South Africa or Australia? Really can't tell with the accent there.
Oh, come on. Otherwise, I'll start accusing you of being a Canadian.
No, nobody will confuse us Americans for Canadians. Yeah, Richard's from across the pond, as they say, over there in the jolly old. And what part of UK are you in, Richard?
I am 90 miles north of London. So if you left the centre of London, went 90 miles north, you'd hit the little village that I'm located in.
Last time I looked at a map, that puts you around Sherwood Forest, eh?
I'm a little bit south of that, but I do like going on holiday there. I'm sort of in between Cambridge and Oxford. Yeah.
This explains a lot. You're amongst all the intellectuals being wedged between those two fine places and universities that exist there.
Yes, well, I'd like to say that, but my wife's the smart one.
We all, that's our job. Our job is to kill animals and provide fire, and their job is to make sure we don't kill ourselves and other people
or do anything stupid. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat as you, sir, in that regard. All right, we're already off the rails. We always start this after saying your name with a very quick and prompt question that we ask the same of every guest. Richard Liverman, what does hospitality mean to you?
I love this question, and having listened to your show, I was really annoyed that Scott Turner stole my answer when it came to hospitals. Wow. But I think there's a little bit where I was thinking about this question a lot, and for me, hospitality, I think, is all about creating meaningful connections, and I think it's about making other people feel special and cared for. And there was a film, I heard a lovely definition of a lady or gentleman, that it's somebody that makes others feel comfortable in your presence. But I think that's what hospitality is.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So you stole it from a film, or is there some impetus in your life that has informed you of what that answer is? How do you know that? Where does that come from?
It's a mixture of things. There's when I was growing up, I used to spend my summers working for a guy called Robert Hardy, and he's one of my mentors. And he would create these incredible exhibitions of plants and win lots of awards. Him and Rosie Hardy are incredible horticulturists and have a nursery in the UK. And have Rosie is the first woman to win 24 Chelsea Gold medals, the highest you can win in that profession in the world. And I used to go all around the country in the summer holidays when I was a student, and they're still going today, which is amazing because I'm getting old. And I still do 1 or 2 days a year helping them out just for fun. And working with Rob, what was amazing about him is he would talk to anybody that came up to the exhibit or to the sales table. And what he taught me was that you treat everybody the way you would want to be treated. And what was really interesting, I was at an exhibition once with him where he was serving Prince Edward. As simple as that. I was well behind security cordon at that point. And he treated Prince Edward the same that he would treat anybody that came up, with a passion, with courtesy, with respect. And I think there was something where he taught me a very valuable lesson at a young age. He was saying that it doesn't matter where you come from, what your status is, it doesn't matter. You make others feel comfortable. You make them feel welcome. And I think what was really interesting was that might have been seen as a sales tool. For me, that's hospitality.
Sure.
And what's amazing about that business is they are still going 35 years on. And what's incredible to me is the amount of fans that they've accumulated. And it is down to, not only is it a great product, I mean, their products are amazing, but it's also that great service and making other people feel comfortable and welcome, no matter what their status. And I think there's something really brilliant about that.
Well, and I just love the fact that you use a horticultural business as an example of learning about hospitality. It just proves my thesis. The thesis of this entire program and this concept of the pineapple perspective is that every business should be in the hospitality business, and that the core meaning and beliefs around what hospitality is should translate in any business, in any conversation.
And I think that's a challenge for the hospitality industry as a whole, because I think there is a little bit where they often look at each other or they look inwards. And I think there's a little bit of a challenge. Go look outwards. Go look at the hotel business. Go look at Emirates and Etihad. They were doing incredible things with service. Go and look outside your industry. And I learned this working in design. We had a project for Godiva chocolates. And yes, we had a look at other chocolate brands. But actually what we went and did was go and look at other luxury brands. What are other luxury brands doing? I think it's so easy if you're a restaurant owner to go and have a look at what your competition's doing. And what can we learn from them? Well, that's part of it. But what can you learn from people who are really great at what they do? What are the people at the top of their game? And go look at other industries. There's so much you can learn from it. I really believe that.
Yep, I agree. I actually, when you think of podcasts or other shows or people to follow and snippets to watch, I tend to pay more attention or follow and listen to more things outside of the restaurant industry, because for that purpose exactly is there's absolutely lessons, whether it's retail or the service businesses or manufacturing, whatever. There's just great examples of, and I'm looking for disruptors. I think probably I'm looking for people to do things before anybody thinks that makes sense to do. It's validating, it's encouraging, it's inspiring. So agree with you totally. I love to listen to the lessons of founders who've created other kinds of companies and hear and listen for those lessons that make sense to apply to my industry or an industry.
I think that makes a huge amount of sense to me, Troy. And I think there was something, I worked for this incredibly brilliant creative genius who sadly we lost a couple of years ago. And I remember him and I would be in London and we'd go for meetings. And the quickest way to get around London is using the underground or metro, whatever you want to call it. And one of the things he would do is in between meetings, he said, right, we're walking. We'll allow extra time and we'll walk. I'm like, why? We got to get to the meeting. He said, walk around with your eyes open. He said, if you walk around with your eyes open, you absorb stuff and then you bring it into your thinking. And I really like that mantra and that philosophy because it served me really well. And I think it's so easy when you work with organizations where people become really myopic, right? This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we do. Okay, go and look around. What are other people doing? And I think when we talk about service, for instance, I always joke that some of the best service I've ever had was at Disneyland in LA. Well, what's that got to do with consultancy or coaching or hospitality? Well, actually, what can I learn from wandering around Disney and the interactions with the people there? And I think there is this little bit where we're so quick to stay in our bubbles in our industry. And to quote Ferris Bueller, life moves pretty fast. Sometimes you need to stop and have a good look around.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, let's have a good look around inside your head. What do you say? Richard is a coach. It's the best way to describe what he does. He helps entrepreneurs and executives with small and emerging businesses as well as growing brands. You heard him reference his work with Godiva. So let's take advantage of the experience and expertise that he has. One of my favorite things about Richard, and never had ever heard anybody have a mantra or a tagline like this, and he lives it, and he absolutely brings it to every conversation. Richard, your tagline, your personal mantra is "Don't be boring," and I think it's like it is on your website. It's like that's you.
This
is what I do, right? What does Richard do? He helps you not be boring. What does that mean? Well, it means some marketing. It means some branding. It probably means something around execution, operations, mindset. Richard, talk to us a little bit about when you tell businesses and executives and owners, don't be boring. What are you really trying to say?
Do you know, it's very interesting. So I've had businesses approach me, yeah, but we're a little boring. And I'm like, whoa, let's have a little look and see what you are, first of all. And for me, it's not about what type of business you are, because I think all businesses are interested, even accountancy and realtors. There you are, being controversial. There's a bit for me where sometimes I think people's thinking gets a bit boring and a bit staid. So for me, it's about challenging people. So for instance, everybody goes, you should do TikTok, you should do Instagram. And I'll be like, why? Don't be boring. Where are your customers? Where are your communities? And for me, don't be boring is a challenge. And I think too many people, how many times have you heard it in your career, Troy? That's the way we've always done it. Challenge it. Don't be boring. Why? Is it the best? Because if we just carried on the way we were, nothing would happen. There'd be no evolution. So for me, don't be boring is a mantra. It's something to live by, but it's also a challenge to people. It's a challenge to people's thinking. You know, what's really interesting when I work with somebody, either as a consultant or a coach, for me, it's all about how can I get the best out of them? And often that's by challenging them. And I think about, I go back to when I trained as a coach and mentor. There was this incredible guy that taught me called Graham Ravenscroft. And he was one of the British Olympic team coaches. Thank goodness he wasn't teaching me high jump, because that would have been awkward for the pair of us. But he put up on the whiteboard or whatever it was, he put a picture of LeBron James, Barack Obama, and Oprah Winfrey. And they said, what do they all have in common? And I went, they're all American. He said, apart from that, Rich. I said, they're all really successful. And we went around the room, and it turned out they all had coaches. And I was like, but they're all really successful. And it challenged my mindset. And for me, the don't be boring is about challenging people's mindset. It's about challenging people's thinking. And there's always more that we can do. There's always more that is always inside us. Sometimes it just needs pulling out. And the idea of don't be boring is, how can I pull it out to people? How can I challenge people in a way that makes you smile, but also makes you think?
Yeah, I agree. That's a fascinating way to explain it. Give us an example, Richard. I know I put you on the spot, but give us a simple example where, you saw somebody stuck and stagnant, and maybe they didn't even realize they were boring, meaning they were just doing the same old, and not really switching it up or really considering. Maybe they were even challenging back to you when you said, you really should try some new things. There's some opportunities you're leaving on the table. But, give us some example of where this has worked for you and how you saw the results.
Yeah, it was actually last week's the most recent one in my mind. I was working with an incredible florist, an independent florist, and they grow their own flowers. And absolutely, their work is beautiful. And they're kind of a little bit stuck in a rut. And they're going, well, and I'm like, well, hang on a sec. Tell me some stories. I'm like, yeah, but and they were sort of hesitating a little bit. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of a British thing where we hold back a bit. We don't, maybe not as expressive as you guys across the pond, but I really wanted to pull it out of her. And we started talking about the stories. And there was this fire in this person. It had changed their career. They'd done this, and they had this love affair with what they did. And I'm like, well, why isn't it on your social media? Because, their social media, when I looked at their work and I looked at their social media.
Pretty flowers, right? Just food. It's like restaurants, just food. Yeah. Nothing else. Just, this is what we serve, is picture of our food. Yeah.
There was a little bit where they just missed what they actually did. And what they do is they're there for all occasions. If you think about a restaurant, we go to a restaurant often to celebrate, or sometimes if we're out on work, it's to fuel us. There's all those different reasons to come to a restaurant. It's no different to come to a florist. Birth, marriage, death, sorry, thank you. All of these occasions. And I'm like, what connects all of it? And it was love. And this person had this love of what they did. They had a love of their customers. And it just wasn't coming across in their communication. And for me, don't be boring it was a challenge, because when we looked at their website, I'm like, your website doesn't reflect your work. Your social media doesn't reflect your work. And that's where, for me, it's about challenging people. If I can take somebody from, say, a base of 50 to leave them at 100 My job's to help people see that gap and fill it. And that's where the Don't Be Boring challenge comes in. And a lot of it is storytelling, but a lot of it is also going, what is it that really drives you? Why aren't you telling people that story? And I think what's so interesting is so many small and medium-sized businesses have these amazing products, but sometimes struggle to get them across. And if you think about restaurants, how many great independent restaurants do you go to? And occasionally there's nobody in there. You're like, why? And for me, you can have a great product, but if you can't tell that story, that's the don't be boring bit. How do you fill that?
Yeah, my way of explaining that to people is just share your why.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't know who is one of those philosophers. Yeah, start with
Simon
why.
Sinek.
Simon Sinek's got it, but he stole it. There's some old philosopher, right?
Yeah.
And this goes back to the beginning of human times, probably. But the answer, the theory is just keep asking why. And there's different gurus who said, well, if 5, 7, 9, it's always odd. I've heard all of them. They're all attributed to different people. But do you know how infuriating it is for somebody to ask you why 7 or 9 times to the same question, so that you dig and you dig and the purpose isn't to get to 7 or 9 of them. The purpose is to get to the end and get to the actual core real reason, right? And then tell that as a story. And I think when so many people miss in their business and their life is telling their story. People buy from people. People want to connect with people. The reason I put personal things about me on occasion on LinkedIn is because I'm a real human who gets tired, who gets sick, who gets frustrated, who misses my family, or has an exhilarating, unique opportunity or moment. And I want to share that because I'm a real human. I'm not just a logo, right? And I think that is really the opportunity. And brands that have done that build in public, share their why, explain or express their passion, like in that business's case. Why do I do this? Because I get to make people feel better, right?
And you don't need to be a big organization to do this.
Yeah.
You can be any size you want. And I think this is what's so exciting. This is one of the things that really gets me excited about business, is that anybody can do this. And I think for so many people, they hold themselves back. And it's one of those ones where when they're almost unleashed, it's almost like going to the chiropractor. Somebody's smashed your back, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I feel so much better. And for me, that's the great thing about telling people your story, telling people your purpose. And you're right about Simon Sinek. It's a wonderful theory, but it's hardly original. We were taught it in branding at university 30 years ago. So I think there is that little bit where it's not a new thing, but the way he packaged it up and delivered it was brilliant.
Absolutely.
And it's available to all businesses. And I think there's sometimes this bit where we look at the really major brands and we go, oh, that's not achievable. Yes, it is. All it is great storytelling and great thinking. Well, you've set up a business. You've set up a brand. You've grown something from nothing. For me, that takes real courage and creativity. It deserves to be celebrated. And you talk about sharing your journey on social media. It's one of those ones on LinkedIn that I really enjoy to follow because it is truthful. Yes, we celebrate the wins, but there's also the crap bits. And I think the crap bit's one of those things that you need to acknowledge because, we look at other people's social media and it's often perfection. Well, that's not reality.
Yeah. Before we came on, you even, you said something nice about following my journey and our content. And you said, something very similar and used a different analogy, which I had never heard before. So I'm going to reshare it, which is it's like on, whatever you share, it's like a swamp, right? And by the way, I grew up canoeing in most beautiful swamps. Swamps are absolutely gorgeous. If you have never been, the Okefenokee Swamp in northern Florida is one of the most gorgeous places on the planet. And but you can canoe on top of a swamp and see the beautiful trees and the spectacular animals, and you can look in the water, and the water's usually not clear, right? Brown or red or muddy or mucky. And what people don't see is all of the drudging you've done in that muck, all that work you've done to cultivate this thing that you're doing. And I do believe that's where the magic is. To wrap this thought up is the magic is in sharing the shit. And whether it's all of it, little of it, most of it, good, bad,
think about it when you open a restaurant. right? Everybody sees the open day. They see lots of smiling customers with food, and there's the happy bit. How many times has the electrician not turned up a week before? How many times has all the shit bits that
They're
people
all
don't see?
messy. They're all terribly messy. I
And it
assure you.
doesn't matter how much process you put in, it doesn't matter how much training you do, you know something is going to go tits up. And I think there's that little bit where when we look at social media, we look at other people's social media, sometimes you just see the perfection, but actually underneath, the legs are moving real fast. And I think for me, it's recognizing the entrepreneur's journey and, supporting them in the tough bits and celebrating the good bits. And I think it's really important that we celebrate the good bits. We celebrate that, whether that be on social media or whether that be, in private. So for me, I always joke that I win Employee of the Month every month. But, now and again, I'll treat myself to a day off, or I'll treat myself to a pair of trainers. And I think there is something about, okay, how does we as leaders, how do we as entrepreneurs look after ourselves? Because we need to celebrate the good bits as well as acknowledging the harder bits.
And just trainers for everybody are not track suits. That's actually what we would call sneakers or tennis shoes here in the United States. Yeah. We'll translate for the whole world
We
here.
should have subtitles.
All right, Richard, we've established the sort of the reason, right? The why, the goal, the bigger mindset, the macro. You have this sort of saying or this, you use this phrase that I've never seen before and I really love because my dad owned construction companies. The power of business and personal scaffolding. Yes. That sounds foundational. That sounds like building an infrastructure around a process around being able to achieve this goal. Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Do you know, I actually learned about the terminology of scaffolding from my ventures in autism. And one of the things that I learned a couple of years ago is that I have ADHD. I've always had it. I just finally got the diagnosis, and it was like one of those moments. And one of the things that I thought, okay, how can I help me? And when you start researching and learning about this stuff, there is the idea of scaffolding. What can you put up to make your life easier? Now, I think as a business, we can do that by outsourcing, finding the right people, having great people around you. But how do we build scaffolding for us as individuals so we can be the best version of ourselves? Now, scaffolding takes many shapes and forms. So for me, when I make my notes, I have a remarkable tablet. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I get to keep all of my papers in one work. That's a bit of scaffolding that helps me stay organized. But I have other scaffolding. I have a supervisor that helps me monitor the level of the quality of the work that I do. I work with a mentor. I have coaching here and there. I also have people in place to support me when things that I find, sometimes things that I might find a little bit harder. I also think about my own personal scaffolding. What can I do to make sure that my mental health is the very best it can be? So whether that be a dog walk or whether that be a daily gratitude practice. And then I think about the scaffolding about my business. How can I be the best version of myself? So I'm putting myself back to university to get another qualification because I want to make sure that I am the very best I can be. So sometimes I know in some of the conversations we've had in the past, we've talked about that personal board of directors. For me, that becomes part of scaffolding. So to everybody listening, I want you to think and challenge yourself. What is the scaffolding to help you be the best version of yourself? Is it things that are in place in terms of process? Is it people? Is it places? What is it? And then what I want you to think about is, what do I need? What scaffolding do I need to help me grow? And I think it's such a wonderful term. And again, it's like the why theory that we were talking about before. This is not something that's elite. This is something that everybody can do. And I really encourage it. And when we think about our own personal scaffolding, we go, okay, what are the bits that I need in place for me to grow and flourish? And that's how I think about it.
Yeah, you've got my head going. There's lots of systems to reference. I was very fortunate, very young, to adopt the Stephen Covey system, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Good book.
That system, tried true and would last me a lifetime, but we change as people, we outgrow. And that system is not as interesting on a day-to-day basis for me. And I think I've struggled over the last few years to sort of find a new system. But the point is that there needs to be a system. There's a system around personal care and health, a system around family and connectivity, a system around routine and discipline in your business. I check my email, I return my calls, I schedule the meetings. I do the work in between. I do the homework before the thing. All of these are separate systems, but ultimately what you're saying is absolute truth is you have to build some kind of system and infrastructure that you can rely on, that is going to be sturdy, that is going to be,
and it's
you can
personal
grab
to
it
you.
if you're going to fall.
No,
Yeah.
it's personal to you. And I always am really impressed with people that switch off email at the weekend. I think that takes real discipline. I'm also really impressed by, how do we build those personal systems that work for us? So, for example, when it can be so simple as in every evening, I put my keys, wallet, phone, earbuds in the same place. Then every day they're there. And again, if you look at the example of Zuckerberg and the example of the guy at Amazon, they talk about making less and better decisions. So somebody chooses the clothes for them. Now, I actually like to choose my own clothes, but there is that point where what are those things that you could put in place, either from a practical level or even from like a bigger picture, like what is the coaching, what is the mentoring, what is the training, and it doesn't have to be formal. It can be listening to a podcast. It can be after you've had a big meeting. When I go in for a big meeting, so I went to the House of Parliament in London back in January. It was kind of a big deal for me. First time in that building, I've been invited. And before I went in, I got there early, had a cup of tea, put on some music to relax me. So when I went in, I was the best version of myself. That's scaffolding. And all of those things, again, they're all free. So you've got to think about what can you do to help yourself. And then when you need that expertise, go and work with somebody that can help and support you.
Yeah, I'll be remiss to not wrap this by saying the unlock is the outside perspective. The unlock is community. And whether that's one person, a small group of people, or several groups of people, the unlock is community. The speed at which you can learn from other people's examples, lessons, learnings, failures, wins, and the speed at which you can accelerate all your successes by asking for help or asking for insights or guidance at the most nano level. It could be the simplest single thing. Hey, I saw you did this. I'm impressed and inspired. What was that journey like? Can you give me 15 minutes to explain to me how you even came up with the idea versus the challenges versus how you please and thank you. And guess what? 99% of people will want to share that. They want to take what they've learned and make it easier for you, right?
And I think in the information age, I also think sharing's gone up because there are no secrets. Well, apart from the Colonel's spices, but other than the Colonel and his spices in Kentucky, as far as I'm concerned, you can learn all of this by AI and Google. I think what brings it alive is the humans. And I think this whole idea, if you think back to the early parts of our career, where people would hide information to benefit their own career, that's gone. And we're in this new mindset where all of this information is available. I think where it becomes really interesting is who do you ask? And I think when that advice comes to you unsolicited, for me, that's junk mail. So if somebody says to you, do you know what, that restaurant you've opened, actually, you should have put it here, here, here. If you didn't ask for it, that's unsolicited, that's junk mail. But if you go and ask somebody that you've gone and asked for that information, there might be real value in that. And this whole information age, how can we take advantage of it? You're absolutely right. Go and ask interesting people the questions.
There's a quote, I keep saying it, especially on TikTok. Don't accept criticism from somebody you wouldn't ask advice of.
Oh, I like that.
If they haven't done it and done it better than you before, really, the criticism has no value. And again, in that case, it's not trying to be helpful, right? If criticism is trying to be helpful, that's constructive, as we would say. But if it's just somebody else trying to make themselves feel better about themselves and feel more important or knowledgeable or experienced, then really that's not of value to you. And you should, as you say, drop it in junk mail. And by the way, don't forget to empty your junk mail and your deleted messages from time to time. There's a lot of memory stored up in there. Get rid of it. You don't need it. It's like my spare room up here. Whatever's in there I haven't seen in a year needs to get thrown away. All right, Richard, let's start to bring this sucker home here in the next few minutes. What would you say is necessary for a business, a brand, a personal brand to stay fresh? What does it mean to stay fresh? I mean, it goes back to this don't be boring thing. But I'm boring. How do I stop being boring? How do I freshen up this thing that I have, whether it's my business, my personal brand, etc.?
For me, it's about understanding what it is. And one of the things that I really like digging into is what's the brand DNA? Like really getting into the DNA of a brand. And if you think about like the real global, the massive global players, what they stand for and what those brands are all about, you know it. You know the DNA. If you look at Nike, you know the DNA is not just do it. It's innovation, it's style. You know that. You know the purpose of it is victory and all the rest of it. What I always challenge people to do is, okay, what's your brand DNA? And when we were talking about Simon Sinek earlier, if you look at any brand, purpose element of a brand is your why. And you go through all the different levels of your brand and you look at it and you go, what is the DNA of it? And then for me, it's about communicating that in an interesting manner. But if you don't know your DNA, it's almost like, well, here, just throwing leaflets into a crowd, hoping somebody will pick it up. You need to know who you are before you can communicate it. So for me, one of the things that I challenge any restaurant to do or any business to do is, what's your DNA? If your team doesn't understand it, how do you expect your customers to? And if you don't care about it, what do you think is going to happen to your business? And I think when you look at the really fantastic global brands, they care about their brand DNA. They're excellent at communicating it. And I think there's a lot you can learn from that. You don't have to be a global brand to do that. There's a great neighborhood restaurant in San Francisco called Kitchen Story. There's one in Castro and there's one in Oakland. The food's fantastic. The stories around the brand are fantastic. They've even created a bacon there called Millionaire's Bacon. It has maple syrup and all kinds of different ingredients. It's fantastic. I've been there twice. The brand DNA is the friendliness of the staff, the local produce. It is beautifully beautiful. And the restaurant's called Kitchen Story, a story about a brand and a kitchen. So for me, you don't have to be a global giant to do it. You can be a really fantastic neighborhood restaurant.
Yeah. Anybody can make that dish at home. Any restaurant can copy that dish. The widget is not the thing that you are. The mission, the vision, the purpose, your why is what you need to share. And I've said this for many years. Chefs, owners, operators, etc., need to get online now in the new world media and tell us why. There's a reason you created the restaurant, and whether it was Nona's pasta or and keeping the memory and the recipe alive, or sharing something with the world that very few people have had a chance to enjoy, is your core foundation. But why did you build this? Why are you offering this? Why do you get up every day to turn on those lights and make a living this way? Why did you choose this? And
100%,
I think if
100%.
you do that, you can draw an audience.
You've got to have a great product. You can't just have a crap product and then try and sell it, because as far as I'm concerned, that's polishing a turd. I like things where there's style and substance. Now, what I've often seen with lots and lots of independent businesses, you've got all the substance but no style. And what I mean by style is the ability to communicate your substance. And I think when you look at the really fantastic global brands, they're amazing at communicating their substance. I'm going to give you a very quick example. My wife has expensive tastes. She loves Chanel No. 5, right? Parfum, loves it. So I always try and buy her one either when I'm traveling, so I can get it duty-free, or on the run-up to Christmas. But if you think about a bottle of perfume, glass bottle, water, scented, it costs less than $3-4 to make. So why does it sell for over $150, $200? It's a great product, but it's great storytelling. So I'm not suggesting that everybody becomes a luxury brand. What I am suggesting is have a great product, match it with storytelling and style, then your business is so much easier.
Well said. Good way to wrap it. Richard Liverman, tell us what you do for independent people, brands, emerging companies, giant brands like Godiva. Give us a quick infomercial on what it is Richard can offer and how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thank you. My way I operate is through consultancy, coaching, and mentoring. So it depends on what you need. And for me, it's all about helping people to be the best version of themselves, helping them to be their scaffolding. So from a consultancy perspective, it could be looking at some fresh thinking. And one of the things that I have as one of my abilities is that big picture thinking. How can I take 3 or 4 ideas, merge it into one, create something new? Or what's going on over here? How can we bring it into your business? And I think sometimes for me, it's about almost revealing those blind spots and those opportunities. So from a consultancy perspective, I do a lot of work on DNA. I do a lot of work on strategy. And if this is something that you're looking for, go onto my website, richersolutions.com. But also from an individual and a personal perspective, I work with people to help them with their own coaching and mentoring. And for me, it's about helping them be part of their scaffolding to help them grow and help them to flourish. And I've worked with some incredible individuals and lots of people from the neurodivergent community. And I think sometimes that kind of lived experience and understanding has really helped them flourish. So for me, my mantra is not just don't be boring. And if you're going to work with me, there'll be a lot of laughter, but it can be quite emotional as well. But for me, it's about helping people to flourish. So if you need to flourish, you need an external view on your business, you need some help with your brand DNA, or if you're thinking to yourself, am I the very best that I can be? If the answer is no, then go onto my website, richersolutions.com, and book in a half-hour call with me. There's a big pink button on my website that says push the button.
I love it. I love it. Push the button. This is this is it. Push this button. You'll get what you need. And for those who might struggle with accents, Richer, Richer, like a richer life, a richer experience, richersolutions.com. And by the way, the guy spends a minute or two on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can find him on most of the social handles as well. We'll connect all those and put all those in the description and comments and all the places that you put that on these platforms where people might be listening or watching. Richard, really great to have you. Awesome to spend some time learning from you. Thanks for coming on the Pineapple Perspective.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I enjoy listening, and to be a guest is an honor. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.